Americans take the concept of family really, really seriously, because Picard Season 3 is basically a show about family and legacy and previous mistakes concerning family and some people's perception of what family is supposed to be, because Picard in this case has a very interesting, you can see the dynamics before and after something is introduced. We have some flashbacks in this particular episode that show us what Picard used to think about family and now what he thinks about family and what all that, the consequences of all that. And there are a lot of characters, some from the old. Now, I've never seen those old episodes, I've never seen all those shows. I was only introduced to Star Trek through the trilogy, the modern trilogy, and my favorite was like Star Trek Into the Darkness. Benedict Cumberbatch actually nailed it. Now, as I was saying, some characters are from those old shows and they are also introduced, and then new family, grown-up families are introduced, and you can see the conflict and the family dynamics and the consequences of also their decisions to do what they had to do. So this show did a very interesting balance between the old and the new. Actually, the first episode I think is called The New Generation, and the last episode is called The Last Generation. So it creates an interesting balance, and they actually also create that within the crews. And by episode 7 and 6, you see the crews slowly merge, the old and the new slowly come together. So this show is a very, very good show. As I say, it tackles the theme of family, it tackles the theme of friendship, it tackles the theme of loyalty and looking out for each other. And I always appreciate that about Hollywood. And it's not done the way we expect it to be done. It's not all jokey or whatever. You can see they address the conflict, they address the bad and the good side, and they try to balance it out in a very, very good way. It's competently written in that, think of it this way, all these movies that talk about bringing a team together, there's only one thing that is cuts across all movies with a team. You have the guy going like, we have a problem, so we need to get a guy for this, we need to get a guy for this, we need to get someone for this, we need to get someone for that, we need to get someone for that, right? But in this particular show, everything happened so organically that the old crew coming together was not like, let's get my friend from that, let's get my friend from that, let's get my friend from that. It was more of a coincidence, it was more of accidental meetups, it was more of, we need to go there, but when they go there, they find an old, a former crewmate of Picard. So I really loved that about it, because it did not feel like they were trying to just forcefully bring these people in. Everything was a necessity. So with this particular show, it felt like I watched two movies. Episode 1 to 4 feels like a standalone movie in itself. Episode 6 to 8, yes, it's coming off the events of episode 1 to 4, but it now gears up into a different story. It gears up into a different, the current villain that we were introduced to, you find that she's working for something else, and so everything has been elevated. And from 6 to 10 is where we get to meet the older crew. That's where the older crew now comes in. For 1 to 4 is the younger crew. So there was that balance, and I really loved the way everything just fell into place. The first 4 episodes were intense. The last 3 episodes are also super intense because of the situation that they find themselves in. And in terms of themes, there's also the theme of making bad decisions. Picard makes a super bad decision that almost kills them all. But again, it's a show and it's the star of the show, so obviously everything goes back to normal. But I love the fact that they actually embrace the idea that people can actually make mistakes. Now, if you're woke sensitive, episode 1 may feel, but by the time you get to the third act of episode 1, everything now just jumps into the Star Trek that you're familiar with. Now, moving from episode 2 to 10, it's fully Star Trek. They don't go into trying to push for something or trying to push the agenda. Yeah, you can see some things, but everything within that story makes sense. There's nothing that is there. It's lean. It's a very lean story. It's very lean storytelling. Now, the visual effects, the starships feel cleaner, the lighting looks better, and the villain's ship looks epic. It's much bigger, it looks villainous, and I love the way Star Trek is one of those shows that is able to depict the difference between bad and good visually very well. They have ships. If you were to pick a starship concept art and just randomly look at them, you'd be able to pick out the villains' starships very easily and the good guys' starships very easily. They do a very good job with the design and the lights. The starship, the good guys' starships look bluer. They have a blue light. The bad guys' starship have a yellow, red, orange, energy feel. So they have that distinct look from each other. So when they come together, you can actually easily distinct. You can actually just pick out who the bad guys are and the good guys are, apart from the design of the craft in itself. It's a very villainous design, sharp edges, really big, and it actually looks intimidating from the first time that you see it. The leader of the team, the first team that you see from episode 1 to 4 is called Vadik, a very jokerish character. She reminded me of the Joker in a way, with the spinning of the chair and how she expressed herself. But then you also find out that she's working for someone else, and that's now who we tackled from episode 6 to episode 10. Judging from how the actors and the characters were reacting to that, the bigger villain, it seems that this is a villain that they've come across before. This is a villain that has given them a problem in the previous shows. I've never seen those previous shows, but it seems like this is something also from their past, and they're able to deal with it very, very well. There was an interesting character. There's a place they went to where they retrieve one of the old school characters. It's called Data. And there was also another character, this character. Very, very interesting character. It's very fascinating. He's a villain. I think it's called Moriarty. It seems that he can play, or he has played it seems like they've crossed paths before. And he looks very villainous and very playful and very, just overall, I kind of liked that particular character, the way he was introduced, how he used music and how he reacted to the environment, and finding out what he actually was pretty cool. So generally, that's Picard season 3. What did I not like? I did not like, as I said, episode 1 was wonky. Episode 1 is a very wonky episode. It feels like a generic Netflix show. The first 2 acts, from the 3rd act onwards, it's a totally different show. But the first 2 acts feel, they have that generic feel whereby they're trying to communicate something, and they have everything on their face, as compared to now episode 2 and going on. So if you're going into this, just remember that episode 1 may feel walkish in a way, but after that everything goes on smoothly. The other thing that I not like, I talked about the ship. The ship is huge, it's menacing, it's superimposing, but they had to use if you're familiar with the Hans Zimmer in the early 2010s, there was something about the Hans Zimmer's trailers, and which went on for like a lot of trailers after that. So they have that sound in this particular show, and every time that ship shows up, they play that sound. And for the first time you're like, oh, that's epic, and the second time you're like, oh, that's epic. The third time you're like, okay, can we just, it's okay, we get the point. And it keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps going. Every time the ship would show up or something would be happening within the ship, they would play that sound, and you go like, come on. But it doesn't take you away from the overall story. So yeah, Picard season 3, very good story, very fantastic visual effects, interesting themes, balance in terms of old and new. Pacing, also I forgot to talk about the pacing. It's very well paced. I love the editing. Sometimes they do something very interesting with the editing, and it's nothing new. It's whereby someone is talking, and then instead of him or her, or the person who is talking continuing talking, they cut into something else happening, but with the voiceover of the person who was talking, which helps the story move forward very, very quickly. So that was pretty cool. The bad is maybe that soundtrack of the ship, and that first episode is kind of wonky. So generally, I would give this a 4 out of 5. It's a pretty good show. It's very entertaining. It's very tense, especially the first 4 episodes and the last 3 episodes. They're very, very intense, and they kept me there. It's that thing of you watch and you just want to move on to the next episode. You can't wait for the next episode. It's a binge-worthy show. Let me just call it that way. So it's a 4 out of 5. Thanks for watching. I will see you on the next one.